Today we're going to learn Shabbat Daf Kuf Lamed Bet. Today's daf is sponsored by Robin Samuels for Refuah Shlema Umehira for Yaakov Wolf Ben Sipa. We started yesterday, we were talking about Rabbi Eliezer and his opinion about Brit Milah, about Machshirei HaDochin et HaShabbat, that preparations for Brit Milah can basically override Shabbat. And we said he disagrees with Rabbi Akiva and all the other rabbis about this issue. There's a bit of a question about Rabbi Eliezer in general. We learned the other day that he's a shamuti. Shamuti means, number one, either they put them in excommunication. He often had extreme opinions. And also that he was like Beit Shammai. And Beit Shammai is normally machmir. Now here, he's theoretically being more lenient because he's allowing you to do so much more on Shabbat. So the question is, how do those two things fit together? And it could be that we could view it as he has a fundamental position about mitzvot. Right? We started with the whole issue that he's mechavavei mitzvot, that he loves doing mitzvot. Because of, not that he loves, but because of our love for mitzvot, remember you have to carry the knife out in public to show everybody that you're doing it because of the love for mitzvot. And maybe that's his whole idea, that the mitzvot are so important. It's a kind of fundamentalist approach to mitzvot. And because of that, he allows you to do for Brit Milah to basically be doche Shabbat, to override Shabbat because of the importance of the mitzvah. So that's just something interesting to think about. Maybe it connects with his whole overall approach to his more fundamentalist approach to things in general. So even though he's more lenient here, it actually could be viewed as representative of a more fundamentalist approach. What we did yesterday was we proved, and that was the whole second part of yesterday's shiur, we proved how he holds it by all these other mitzvot and where his sources in the Torah, that we know that all those things, also the machshirei mitzvah, the preparations, also override Shabbat. When it comes to sukkah, lulav, matzah, right? There were all those except for a few exceptions of tzitzit and mezuzah that aren't, but everything else is. Now we're going to start at the only one thing he didn't yet prove to us is how we know that machshirei milah are dochim Shabbat. So that's what we're going to start today from the very bottom of Kuf Lamed Aleph Amud Bet. Milah, 2 lines from the bottom. Milah v'chol machshirei dochin et HaShabbat divrei Rabbi Eliezer. So now we're going to talk about the Brit Milah and where does he get that the preparations override Shabbat. Minale Rabbi Eliezer ha. Where does he get this from? Imikulu gamar. Maybe he learns it from all the other sources, the sukkah, the lulav, and all that list. Well, kidam rinan. We already said that each one, remember, has its own unique stringency or something about it that's different from everything else. Because of that, we can't learn from each of those to the other. Ve'od. And additionally, what's unique about all the others, or what's unique about Brit Milah compared to all the others? All the others are set for a certain time period or a certain time. Brit Milah, you can do any time. If you miss the time, you can still do it, right? You didn't do it on the 8th day. You're supposed to do it on the 8th day. But if you didn't, you can still do it. And therefore, if the others, in Mavar Zmana B'Telah, you can't do them anymore. So therefore, you might say, Machshirei Milah, don't push off Shabbat, because theoretically you could do it tomorrow. You don't have to do it today. Therefore, Ela Hainu Tamid Rabbi Eliezer Da'amar Kha, Uvayom Hashmini Yimo B'Sar Olato V'Afilu B'Shabbat. Comes Rabbi Eliezer and he learns it from, and on the 8th day, what does that teach you? On the 8th day, it could even be Docha Shabbat, even all the preparations. Okay, that's where he gets it from. So then they say, well, now that we got to here, why don't you say, V'lichtav Rachmana B'Milah, V'leitu Hanach, V'ligmor Minei. But if you say Brit Milah, which we just said a minute ago, is kind of weaker than all the others, like there's less likelihood that we let you do it on Shabbat because you could just do it the next day or the day after. So it doesn't have to be done on Shabbat. And yet it overrides Shabbat, the preparations. From there, you should be able to learn to all the others. But what does the Gemara answer? No, because Mala Milah, Shekei Nechritu Aleh Shlosh Esrei Britot. Brit Milah is a chumrah, and this comes up many times in the Gemara. There's something unique about Brit Milah, and what is that? That when it comes to Brit Milah, it's mentioned, the word Brit is mentioned 13 times in the verses when Avram gets the commandment to do Brit Milah. And from there, we see that there were 13 covenants, so to speak, that were forged through the Brit Milah. And therefore, that gives it special significance, in which case, that's why we want to do it on Shabbat, and that's why we can't learn from there to anything else. Okay, so that sort of closes that whole section of the Machshirei Milah of Rabbi Eliezer. Now we're going to go back to both opinions. Both Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Akiva and the rabbis agree about one basic fact, which is their only debate is about the preparation, right? Meaning, can you cut down trees to make a fire, to create the scalpel? But everybody agrees that a Brit Milah you could do on Shabbat. We all know that. We've been to Brit Milahs on Shabbat, likely. Brit Milah, when it's done in the right day, when it's done on the 8th day, it pushes off Shabbat. So minalam, where do we learn that? Okay, that's our basic question. If you look at the sheet I prepared today, you can see on the first side, there's going to be 7 options as to where we learn this. Some will be rejected, some will not be. We'll see. So let's go. First one. Amar Ula, halacha, v'chein amar b'yitzchak, halacha. This is an easy answer. They say it's a masoret. It's what we call halacha l'Moshe Sinai. This was passed down for many generations. And now, when you talk about halacha l'Moshe Sinai, it basically means there's no logic, there's no drasha, it's just a fact, okay? And it's very strong because it's passed down from many early generations, and that's what they say. But there's a bit of a problem with this. Meitive, they say, it can't be that it's halacha because, we're going to have a few things that build on each other here. How do we know that if someone's life is at stake, you can override Shabbat for this? Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah Omer, Ma milah shehi echad me'ivarav shel adam doche et haShabbat. Now, in this braita, they view milah as a way of fixing a person's body, right? Milah is kind of a tikkun, right? That's why we make a brit. It's kind of like fixing something that needs to be fixed in the body. So if there's something that needs to fix one part of a body, we allow it to override Shabbat. So we're going to say now, kal v'chomer lepikuach nefesh shedochet haShabbat. All the more so, if someone's life is at stake and his whole body is at stake, we're going to allow you to override Shabbat. So they make a logical argument. Now, what's the problem? Now we're going to say, isal kadata halacha, if you're going to say the whole halacha, Brit Milah, being overriding Shabbat, is all based on a halacha l'Moshe Sinai, on a tradition, kal v'chomer me halacha mi'ate, you can't want something. If something is logical, then we can learn logically from there to something else. Or even if you learn it out from a verse, and then we can say, oh, here's a drasha, you learned it from that pasuk, we can then derive something else. But we're now going to learn that if you learn something as a halacha l'Moshe Sinai, which basically means it's a tradition, and normally it means we don't really understand where it comes from. It's just a fact. You can't then make a logical derivation from that, because you might say this is some unique law that just applies here. And since we don't have any logical argument about it, we can't then make another logical argument from that. How do we know this? How do we know that you can't do this? V'hatanya, which again, let's prove it and then we'll go back and just make sure you have it clear. V'hatanya, Amarlo Rabbi Elazar. Now, there's a debate here. Is this Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah? Or is it Rabbi Eliezer or Rabbi Eliezer? Okay, and Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah was the one who made this logical inference. Since Milaz Chamev Arav Shaladam, therefore, and it's Doche Shabbat, therefore Pikuach Nefesh will be Doche Shabbat. So maybe it's he himself, or maybe it's Rabbi Eliezer who appears in our Mishnah. Either which way, Amarlo, let's just go with what it says here. Amarlo Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, Akiva, Etzem Kisoam Etameh Halacha, Urebi'it Dam Kavachomer. The main point for here is the last point, which is you can't, here he says it explicitly, you can't learn a kavachomer from a halacha l'Moshe Sinai. So if that's the case, and in 1 minute I'll explain all the details. But the main point for our purposes is if ein danim kavachomer mehalacha, and yet Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah says we're going to make a kavachomer from Brit Milah being doche Shabbat to Pikuach Nefesh doche Shabbat, then it must be it's not a halacha, because he doesn't think that you're allowed to learn a kavachomer from a halacha. So therefore, we reject the first answer. Now, what's this discussion between Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah and Rabbi Akiva? So there's a debate about when a nazir, somebody comes a nazir is not allowed to be tamei lamet. He can't become impure to a dead body. If he does, what happens? So he has to go through a purification process, he has to shave his hair, and he has to start his nizirut from the beginning. Okay, if somebody says, I'm going to be a Nazir, I'm not going to drink wine, I'm not going to write all these things. So he basically has to start all over again. But there's different ways that one can be mitameh lamet. You can be in a house with a dead body. You can come in contact with a dead body. You can also come in contact with just a kizayit, an olive bulk of the flesh of a body. You can also, if you touch, now not a din of ohel, but if you touch a bone, that's this etzem keseora. If you touch a bone that is the size of a barley, which is really small, right? That's much smaller than a kizayit. Then the halacha is, and it's a halacha l'Moshe Sinai, that you become tameh. Not if there's a bone that's the size of a barley in a house or in a tent, that's not tumat oel. It doesn't work. But it does work for tumat maga, meaning if you touch it, you will become tameh. So comes Rabbi Akiva and he says, we can learn what about another halacha is revi'it dam. Okay, if you have a quarter log of blood from a dead body, then blood that came from the body, that's also mitame. Okay, so these are all ways that one can become impure. Now, etzem keseora, there's two things here. One is how you become impure to a dead body, and two is, does it negate your nizirut? Do you have to start from the beginning? So when it comes to regular tumat mei, yes, you have to start from the beginning. And when it comes to etzem keseora, you have to start from the beginning. So comes Rabbi Akiva and he says, I'm going to darshan revi dam kal vachomer from etzem keseora. Think about revi dam. It's more, a revi is a quarter log, it's a measure of liquid. It's more than a seora. A seora is teeny, it's nothing. So comes Rabbi Akiva and he says, if etzem keseora knocks out your nizirut, then revi dam should also, if you became tameh lamet through revi dam, it should also knock out your nizirut, and you have to start from the beginning. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah or Rabbi Eliezer, whoever it is who disagrees with Rabbi Akiva, disagrees and says, etzem keseora metameh is a halacha. The fact that an etzem, that teeny amount, is metameh is all halacha l'Moshe Messina. U'revi dam kal vachomer. And you want to learn a kal vachomer from there to revi dam, but ein danim kal vachomer mehalacha. You can't do that. So what he wants to say is, when it comes to revi dam, if you're a Nazir and you become tameh lamet through revi dam, came in contact with a quarter log of blood, it's true you become tameh lamet, but you don't cancel out your nizirut and start from the beginning. You don't shave your hair and you don't start your count from the beginning. You actually continue once you pass the time that you became impure. And what the main point here is, you can't learn a kal vachomer from a halacha l'Moshe Messina. So therefore, again, it's going to negate the fact that we have a braita that darshans a kal vachomer from milah being doches Shabbat. That teaches us that milah being doches Shabbat cannot be halacha l'Moshe Messina, like those two rabbis held. Next answer. Ela amar Rabbi Elazar. Atya ot ot. It says ot by Brit Milah, and it says ot, right, that it's a sign by Shabbat. So therefore, we're going to learn, since the same ot appears in Brit Milah as appears in Shabbat, that's going to teach us that Brit Milah is maybe as significant, if not more than Shabbat, and it will override Shabbat. But the Gemara doesn't like that one, because Elamayata tefillin dichtiv behen ot lidchei Shabbat, but also by tefillin it says ot, and we know that tefillin is not toches Shabbat. We don't wear tefillin on Shabbat, so that's not a good proof. Ella atya brit brit. Okay, well it says brit by Brit Milah, obviously. It says brit by Shabbat. It's also a covenant between us and God. So therefore, we'll say, again, that's why it overrides Shabbat. But then they say, well, gadol dichtiv be brit lidchei Shabbat then. But then, where does it say brit? It says it in general. We already said it says it 13 times. Okay, when it comes to brit, so the issue of a brit is that by brit, by a gadol, it says brit. If you look at the second side of the sheet, it says Breshit Perek Yudzayin Pasuk Yudalid Ve'arel Zachar Shelo Yimol Basar Orlato Ve'necheta Nefesh Me'ameh Et Briti Hafer. This is a person who no one did a Brit Milah on them when they were younger. They got older and they didn't do a Brit Milah on themselves, so they get karet, and it says, and my covenant, they Hefer, they broke my covenant. So now the Gemara says, according to this, you should learn that a gadol, someone who is past the 8th day, should also be doches Shabbat, because it says brit. Now we know that that's not the case. The only time you can do a Brit Milah on Shabbat is if it's on the 8th day. So the Brit doesn't work. So Ella, let's try another one. Atia Dorot, Dorot. Okay, if you look in Rashi, it gives you the psukim. B'Shabbat it says Lidorotam Brit Olam. That's in Kiddush. Ubimilat Katan it says Ben Shmonat Yamim Yimol Kol Zachar Lidorotechem. So there it also says Dorot. So therefore, what do we see? Dorot, Dorot. That's why. But of course, they're going to bring another verse where it says Dorot, and it doesn't override Shabbat. Tzitzit, Tertibe Dorot, Litre Shabbat. So then tzitzit, you should be allowed to prepare tzitzit on Shabbat because it says Lidorot, right? It says no Lidorotam Brit Olam. No, I'm quoting the wrong one, but anyway, it says Dorot in tzitzit. It's not off the top of my head, but there it also says Dorot. So therefore, that doesn't work. Ella Amar Rav Nachman, we're up to answer number 5. Bar Yitzchak. Danim ot brit vidorot. Mi ot brit vidorot. This is classic, right? Well, we have 3 unique words, and those 3 unique words, as it's true, one appears there, one by tefillin, one appears by tzitzit, but those 3 words appear, all 3 of them, only in Shabbat and in Brit Milah. So therefore, we can say the fact that we have all those 3 words, and all those 3 words appear in Shabbat, come to teach you the Brit Milah overrides Shabbat. So that one could work. Lafuke hanach, to exclude all the others, dechad chadhu dichtibem, that only have one of those words. So this one actually doesn't get rejected. But Rabbi Yochanan Amar, Rabbi Yochanan now gives the one that I think you're most familiar with. Amar Kra, the pasuk says bayom afilu b'Shabbat, because it says bayom hashmini, on that 8th day. What does that teach you? On that day, even if it's Shabbat. Okay, so. Amar le Rish Lakish the Rabbi Yochanan. Rish Lakish says to him, Elameata, let's find another place where it says Bayom. We're going to say there it's Doche Shabbat again. We're going to prove, just like we tried with the other words, just because that word appears somewhere else, and it doesn't override Shabbat. So Mechusarei Kapara Dichtivu Bayom Hachinamu Didachu Shabbat. What's a Mechusar Kapara? That's someone like a Metzora or a Zav that goes through a process of 7 days of cleaning. They have to do a process for 7 days. And then on the 8th day, they're supposed to bring a sacrifice. And every time it mentions that, and meaning what happens, they go to the mikvah on the 7th day, they become pure, but they're not actually finished with their process until after they bring their sacrifice. They're still missing something. That's why it's called, they're mechusarei kapara, they're missing atonement. They're not yet there. So what does it say in all those cases? Bayom. So now we're going to say, let's say you're a Metzora and your 8th day came out on Shabbat. Can you bring a sacrifice on Shabbat? Of course not. Why of course not? The only sacrifices we can bring on Shabbat are public ones, tzibur, like the Korban Tamid, and the Korbanot for Shabbat, but not individuals. So if you're going to say Bayom comes to override Shabbat, then Bayom, by Mechusar Kapara, should override Shabbat. You should be allowed to bring your sacrifice on Shabbat. So El Me'ata, Mechusarei Kapara, Dichtivu Bayom. Achinamu Didachu Shabbat. You're going to say also it's Doche Shabbat. So what do they answer? Hahu mebayale bayom velo balayla. That's to say that bayom is needed for something else. It's to teach you can only bring your sacrifice during the day and not at night. So the Gemara says, Hainami mebayale bayom velo balayla. Well then, let's say the same thing for Brit Milah. You can't do the Brit Milah at night, right? You've probably never seen a Brit Milah at night. It's always done during the day. So you can't do that at night either. So they say, that you learn not from Bayom, you learn it from a different verse. Hahu mi ben shmonat yamim. It says, right, on when it's 8 days old, and it says days old, so the days comes to teach you day and not night. So they say, Hainami, wait a minute. But sacrifices also, we know that all sacrifices, if you remember, we've talked about this before, sacrifices were never done at night. They're only done during the day, and that's learned out from a different verse. So meaning, you don't need a separate verse to learn by Mechusar Kapara. They can't bring their korban in the morning, at nighttime. We already know that as a general rule for all sacrifices. Where do we learn it from? Hainami mi biyom tzavoto nafka. There it says on the day that Moshe commanded, I don't remember the whole pasuk, but it's biyom tzavoto there. It says about the korbanot. So it's in the day. There we learn day. So you don't need it. So again, bayom maybe is free to say it's override Shabbat. And that's a problem. So afagav denafka mibiyom tzavoto itzricha. They say no. When it comes to mechusar kapara, even though he's included in all sacrifices, you might have thought he wouldn't have been. Okay, you might have thought there's a unique exception to the rule here. Why? What does that mean? This, in the Torah, in certain circumstances, offers you different options of korbanot. If you're wealthy, you bring a certain one. If you're less wealthy, you can bring, instead of bringing an animal, which is more expensive, you can bring birds. Birds were the cheapest way to go. So for example, in the Mitzorah, which is one of the mechusarei kapara, you can either bring an animal for one of them, or you can switch it and bring a bird. So there's an option for a less wealthy person. So therefore, you might have thought, since the Torah is more lenient and makes a dispensation for someone who's less wealthy. By the way, the Zav, everybody brings birds, and the Zava also. So some people say, the Meiri says it's very good. You might say, well, there it's not bidalut because everybody brings it, but he says specifically, why does everyone only have to bring birds? It's also bidalut. Another mechusar kapara, the Zav and the Zava, they only need to bring birds from the first place because it's a way of being lenient to everybody and allowing everyone to make it easier for the poor people. And in that case, they're no different from everybody else. So even that could be bidalut. It's not only if there's an option for a poor person, even for everyone, in general, it's just a cheaper version of a korban. So now they say, since we make a dispensation and we allow something more lenient, maybe we'd allow you also to do it at night. Now, what's the connection? Well, the connection is we want to make it easy for you. What's easy for you? Well, you've been in this situation for a while. So number one, we want to make it easy that if you can't afford an animal, we can let you have a bird to get out of this situation. What else would make it easy? We'll let you get out of it the night before, right? If we allow you to do it at night, then you can be done with it. So kamash malan. That's why you needed the bayom in the mechusarei kapara to say, no, only day, not night. Okay? And therefore, we're still left with, we can make a distinction, and bayom drasha still stands by brit milah. But matkifla ravina, if you're going to say that we're trying to be more lenient for the mechusar kapara, and that there's this tendency to be lenient, well, yehezar kasher bahem, maybe anyone, not even a Kohen, should be allowed to sacrifice the sacrifice for them. Or yehei onen kasher, or if a Kohen is in the situation where he's an onen, where someone just died, who's one of his relatives who he has to deal with, he's not allowed to work in the mikdash, but maybe we should allow him to do it in order to be lenient to this person. So the Gemara says, obviously, ha'ahadre kra. We just have bayom to teach you, no, we don't override all sorts of laws, only that we allow him to bring a cheaper korban, but not everything else. So that's not really a question. Last answer, number 7. Rav Acha bar Yaakov amar, amakha shmini. Shmini afilu b'Shabbat. It's not bayom hashmini and the focus on the bayom. It's on the shmini, on the 8th. Whether the 8th comes out on Shabbat or it comes out any other day, it's on the 8th. So that's what he says. Afilu b'Shabbat. Shmini afilu b'Shabbat. So now they say, wait a minute. Hi shmini. We need it for something else. What do we need shmini for? That word is very, bayom hashmini doesn't need to be said because you could just say bashmini, on the 8th day. But you can't just say bayom, you won't know what day. We need to know it was the 8th and not the 7th. So they say, no, shvi'i mi ben shmonat yamim nafka. We already know that from the fact that it says when it's 8 days old. So we know it's not on the 7th day. So you don't need shmini to tell you that. Va'kate mebayele, chad l'miute shvi'i v'chad l'miute tshi'i. The ben shmonat yamim comes to say not 7, but it has to be 8. The bayom hashmini comes to teach you and not on the 9th, meaning now, you could still do it on the 9th, but the special mitzvah is to do it on the 8th, in which case you can't learn from here that it's override Shabbat. If you only had it from 1, Havamina, you would have thought, you might have thought it's just, you can't do it the first 7 days. After that, any day you do it is considered its proper time. And that's not the case, and therefore you needed Shmini to teach you that. Therefore, they reject this answer, or they say, not exactly reject it, but they say it's not the strongest answer, because the Shmini could be to say not 7 and not 9. And therefore, Rabbi Yochanan sounds like he has a better drasha, that it's bayom rather than Shmini. And in fact, we're going to bring a braita now to support Rabbi Yochanan, and from here we're going to get off on a tangent that's going to take us till the end of the daf. Tanya kavatei de Rabbi Yochanan u'delo ke Rav Acha bar Yaakov. Okay, we have a braita that supports him and not Rav Acha bar Yaakov. Here goes the braita. Shmini yimol afilu b'Shabbat. Okay, we give a brit milah on the 8th day, even if it comes out on Shabbat. Umani makayem mechalal lehamot yumat. But then it says, if you desecrate Shabbat, you will die. So how do you relate to that? If you're going to do a Brit Milah, you're desecrating Shabbat. Bishar melachot chutz mimilah. That means in all other melachot other than Brit Milah. O eno ela. Okay, we're up to or. Maybe we say afilu milah. Or maybe even Brit Milah, meaning even Brit Milah mechalale hamot yumat. Maybe you will die if you do Brit Milah. Okay, mechalale hamot yumat. Meaning Brit Milah is not Doche Shabbat. So basically this Braita is establishing, maybe we say it is Doche Shabbat, and maybe we say it's not Doche Shabbat. And then when it says on this 8th day, we basically have these two. One says on the 8th day, no matter what, which sounds like even Shabbat. On the other hand, we have if you desecrate Shabbat, you will die. Maybe even if you do Brit Milah. So if you say Mechalel Hamot Yumat includes you can't do Brit Milah on Shabbat, then we would go back and say that Bayom HaShmini means Chutz MiShabbat. You do it on the 8th day, unless the 8th day comes out on Shabbat, and then you do it on the 9th day. Okay? Those are your two possibilities. Talmud Lomar Bayom comes, and now remember, why did we get to this? We wanted to say this Braita proves Rabbi Yochanan. How so? It says in the end, yes, you could say logically this way, and you could say logically that way. In the end, what's the bottom line? We learn it from the word Bayom, Afilu b'Shabbat. The word Bayom comes to say even on Shabbat. Okay? That would be very nice and simple if we ended there. But the Gemara is not satisfied with this, and we're satisfied with the fact that we have this drasha of Rabbi Yochanan. But Rava wants to say, what was the Gemara thinking in the first logic, and what was the Braita thinking in the first train of thought, and what was the Braita thinking in the second train of thought? From this, we're going to get off into a very long tangent. So Rava says, Amar Rava, Hi Tana me'ikara mai kanichale. What did they think in the beginning when they thought the Brit Milah is clearly overriding Shabbat? Ulavasaf mai kakashale. And why did they then suggest the reverse? What was motivating each train of thought? Hachi kamar. This is what they were trying to say. Shmini imo afilu b'Shabbat. Okay, so on the 8th day, you do a Brit Milah, even if it comes out on Shabbat. Umani makayem achalem od yumat. Right now, we're just having a review of the Braita. Okay, and the chart will help you also to understand better. So, umani makayem achalem od yumat b'shar melachot chutz mishabbat. Remember, in the beginning, they said achalem od yumat is anything other than Brit Milah. Aval Milah dachya, but Milah would override Shabbat. So my timer, what would be the reason that we'd say that Brit Milah is doche Shabbat? What's the logic? So they say kal v'chomer. Okay, today's a good example of where before we get to each section, we kind of need to teach you some background. There's now something called sarat. We know that's leprosy. You could have a leprous mark on your body. Now, theoretically, it's like, let's say you have I'm just giving a different example, a pimple. You want to get rid of that pimple. What's the best way, is the best way to do it to just cut it off? Or is the best way to let it heal itself? Okay. So the Torah says you're not allowed to cut off one of your leprous marks. You can't do that. Okay, you're not allowed to. So, and it comes from this pasuk, Hishamer b'nega hatzarat. Hishamer, when it says like Shamor at Yom HaShabbat, that means all the lota says of Shabbat, the negative prohibitions. So Hishamer b'nega hatzarat, they say is a negative prohibition. Protect almost your nega hatzarat, meaning you cannot cut it off. Now the Gemara asks a question. Okay, another background. There's something called Tum'ah hutra b'tzibur. This means if the majority of the people are tameh, comes time for, let's say, Korban Pesach, okay, or for any public sacrifice, and the majority of the Kohanim are tmeim, okay, and they can't do the work in the Beit HaMikdash, or the majority of the people are tmeim. Let's say for Korban Pesach, all the people need to be there to do the Pesach. So what do? We say Tum'ah hutra b'tzibur. We allow Tum'ah in the Beit HaMikdash for the purposes of the communal offering. So even if the majority of the Kohanim can come in and do their work. Okay, we basically override Tum'ah. So now they say, now that's only what kind of Tum'ah? Tum'ah meit. It doesn't apply if they're all Tmeim Zav, or they're all Tmeim with Tzarat. Now theoretically, if they're all Tmeim with Tzarat, then comes the Korban Pesach. So what's supposed to happen? We don't do the Korban Pesach in time. We push it off, okay, for the whole everybody. But now they say, but theoretically, we should say, why don't we override the halacha why don't we say that basically because of the importance of doing the sacrifice, why don't we allow us to cut off the negat sarat, okay? But we don't say that. So because of this, what do we say? We say, Kal v'chomer hu. So now let's establish our kal v'chomer. Umat tzarat shedocha ta'avodah. If you have leprosy, it overrides avodah, meaning you can't do the work in the Beit HaMikdash if you have tzarat. What does that show? The fact that we don't allow you to get rid of it shows how severe tzarat is. The tzarat is going to be the highest in terms of stringency because it doesn't override work in the Mikdash. V'avodah dochat Shabbat. Now, what do we know? We know that avodah is more significant than Shabbat because you can do all the sacrifices you have to do on Shabbat. You're allowed to do on Shabbat, and you can desecrate Shabbat for that. So if you look at the list of hierarchy, we have tzarat is top. Then there's avodah because tzarat doesn't override avodah. Then avodah overrides Shabbat. Okay, and then, now, what's the last one? Milah docha ota. If you have a nega tzarat exactly where you're supposed to do the circumcision, theoretically, we shouldn't allow you to do Brit Milah because you're going to cut off the nega tzarat, and that's forbidden. However, we allow you to cut it off. Brit Milah is dochet tzarat. Now, if tzarat is at the top of our list here in terms of stringency, and Milah overrides that, then Shabbat shenitchet b'pnei avodah eino din shtei Milah doche ota. So isn't it logical then that Milah should be doche Shabbat because Shabbat was at the bottom there in our list? Okay, that's the logic, the first side of the Braita. So now they want to know umay o eino dekamar. So what's the second option then? That seems like a pretty good logical proof. So why does the Braita then suggest the opposite? That maybe Shabbat mechalaleha motuma includes Brit Milah and you cannot do Brit Milah on Shabbat? So Hadar Amar. So the Braita, the author of the Braita, then went back and suggested the following. Umi maitz di tzarat chamura. But maybe tzarat isn't really more stringent than Shabbat. Dilma Shabbat chamura. Maybe Shabbat is more stringent. Sheken yesh ba onashim va'azharot harbeh. Number one, it has a ton of punishments, right? You could get theoretically 39, you could have to bring 39 sacrifices if you accidentally did all of the lamitet melachot and azharot harbeh. And there's so many times in the Torah where it tells you to keep Shabbat. So, inami, or you could also say, maybe it's not because tzarat is so chamor that we don't allow you to cut off your nega in order to allow you to do the avoda, but mishum dechamira tzarati, it's not necessarily because it's so stringent that, like you suggested in the beginning, dilma mishum gavruhu delochaze. Maybe it's because that person has a nega, he can't, right? If all the kohanim have negaim, well, technically they just can't, it's a technical problem. They can't do the avoda. Even if they cut off their nega, they're still not going to be allowed to do the avoda. Why is that? Well, we'll see this later in the daf, but it's because they need to go to the mikvah also. Just cutting it off doesn't purify you, and it's not you're magically purified. There's still a process you have to go through. So therefore, that's another reason why tzarat isn't doche the avoda, but not because it's any more stringent than Shabbat. And therefore, the logic is maybe we can't build that logical argument, and maybe Shabbat is actually more chamor, and maybe Brit Milah would not be doche Shabbat. So that's the two sides, and therefore the Braita in the end, they're just repeating the end of the Braita, Talmud Lamal. That's why you need a pasuk. Umani makayem shmini yimo chutz mishabbat. So how do I know that that's the case? Talmud Lomar bayom afilu b'Shabbat. So there you have a drasha, because logic go this way, logic go that way. In the end, that's the case. Okay, next. Tanu Rabbanan. We're going to have a Braita now. What we want to know here is, how do we know that Milah is dochet tzarat? Okay, we kind of assumed it was a given, but now we want to know what's the source. Tanu Rabbanan. Milah dochat tzarat bein bismana, bein shelo bismana. This is interesting. Even if you're not on the 8th day, you're on the 9th day or 10th day where you wouldn't be doche Shabbat, but it is dochet tzarat, meaning if you have a leprous mark there, you could still do the Brit Milah. So Yom Tov, sheino doche ela bismana bilvad, and therefore, but Yom Tov, but when it comes to Brit Milah and Yom Tov, or Shabbat, for all intents and purposes, it's a na doche ela bismana bilvad, but only if it comes out on the 8th day will it override. So now they want to know, where do we get this from that it overrides tzarat? Or the negative commandment to not cut off a tzarat nega that you have, a leprous mark. Ditanu Rabbanan, yimo basar or lato. By the way, I'll just tell you, this Braita is going to be the exact same structure as the previous one, which is maybe you would say this, maybe you would say that, and then we have a verse to prove this one. And then the Gemara is going to do the exact same thing and say, what were they thinking in the first place? What were they thinking in the second place? The one difference is going to be that they're going to have two different suggestions for each. They're going to go with one line of thinking for the first and the second option, and then they're going to go with a second line of thinking. So here's the structure. It's fun when in the daf you have the same structure repeated throughout, so you can really get it. It's easier to get because we review it. So yimol b'sar lato, that comes to prove afal pi sheyesh sham baheret yikotz. Okay, so yimol b'sar or lato, you can do the brit milah on the flesh of the orla. Now theoretically you could just say yimol or lato. Why basar? It's to teach you even if there's baheret you can cut it off. Uma ani mekayem hishamer b'negat sarat. So what do I do with that lo taseh that you have to not cut off the negat sarat? Bishar mekamot chutz mimilah. This is any other situation other than brit milah. Oh, or maybe, maybe it's even milah. Umani makayem yimol b'sar lato. So then what do I do with yimol b'sar lato? That's bizman she'ein ba baheret. Oh, that's only when you don't have baheret. Talmud lomar, meaning yimol b'sar lato. In regular circumstances, if you have a baheret, a leprous mark, no, you can't do the brit milah. Again, that's the second option of thinking. Talmud lomar basar afal pi she'ein sham baheret. So in the end, we have the drasha, and the drasha overrides any logical arguments. So again, Rava comes in and says, Hi Tanami, Karamaini Chale, Ulavasov my Kashale. Why was he satisfied with the drasha at the beginning and thought this was logical, but then tried to prove the opposite logic? Hachi Kama, this is what he said. Again, we're going to first quote it. Imol b'sar lato, afa pishiesh baheret, uma ani makayem hishamer b'negat tzarat, b'shar mekamot chutz mimilah, v'amilah dochat hatzarat, my time. Okay, that was just quoting the first option that will assume that milah dochet tzarat, and when it said hishamer, it means any case other than brit milah. So what's the logic? And again, it's going to be the same logic, except that we're going to start in the reverse direction as the previous. Okay, here goes. De'ate mikal v'chomer. We're going to learn it from a kal v'chomer that milah is dochet. How? Uma Shabbat chamura milah docheota. Shabbat. We're starting with the end logic we had last time, which is Shabbat is more stringent because it has onashim and asharot harbe. It has a lot of different elements to it. Shabbat is chamura and milah is dochesh Shabbat. So tzarat lo kol shekain. If tzarat is less important than Shabbat, then right, I'm thinking about the fact that we have a homosechet Shabbat and we don't have a homosechet tzarat. We have a besechet Nigaim, we do have actually a homosechet on it, but there's no Gemara on it, right? It's definitely less, and it's much shorter than, I don't remember how many prakim, but I'm sure it's much shorter than Shabbat. But we do actually have a homosechet on it, so that's just interesting. But anyway, ma Shabbat chamura milah docheota, so tzarat lo kol shekain. So then, umay oeno. So then what's the reverse, the other logic? The ka'amar, my oeno de ka'amar. What's the oeno that they said in the second part? Hadar ka'amar. Well then, they returned and they said, Mimai de Shabbat chamura, dilma tzarat chamura, shekain. And now we're going to go back to our first argument from the last case. Dochet avodah. Remember, it overrides avodah. If everyone has tzarat, we don't say cut off your negat tzarat. That's more important than korbanot. And avodah is dochet Shabbat, and korbanot are more important than Shabbat. So therefore, tzarat is more important than Shabbat. So maybe you can learn it from Shabbat. Maybe, right, we'd say, it's not dochet tzarat. It's just dochet Shabbat, but it's not dochet tzarat. It's so much more important. Talmud lomar basar. That's why we have the drasha. Afal pi sheyesh sham baheret. That was the first way of reading this brayta. Lishna achrina. Second way. Milah dochat tzarat my taima. Da'ate. Okay, so now they're going to say, now why would we think that milah is dochat tzarat in the first part? Da'ate ase v'dache lo tase. We have this concept. If you have a positive commandment and it clashes with a negative commandment, the positive commandment overrides the negative. So what do we have? We have do the brit milah. We have don't cut off your negat tzarat. Well, the aseh of do the brit milah should override the lo taseh of don't do that. Okay, don't cut off the negat tzarat. So that's the first logic. So umay oeno de ka'amar. So what's the oeno then? Hadar ka'amar. But then they went back and said, wait a minute. That's when you have a regular lo taseh. And we're going to see now this isn't a regular lo taseh. Why? So when you have on the one hand, right, you have like scales. You have a positive commandment versus negative commandment. The positive commandment weighs out. But if you have Hi ase velo tasehu. But the negat sarat has a positive element and a negative. Well, that's already two. That's going to outweigh the one of the mitzvah ase. What's the ase? So they say, it says you should do like the Kohanim. And did I bring it on the sheet? I thought I brought it on the sheet, but maybe not. Yeah, I brought it on the sheet in the chart. You have to do exactly as the Kohanim say. They say that's the positive commandment there. So we view that there's a positive and a negative, and that's why Brit Milah maybe wouldn't override it. But then you have this drasha of basal. Bizman she'en sham beheret. That's only bizman she'en sham beheret. Talmud lomar basar al pi sheyesh sham beheret. So in the end, we say, oh, sorry, that was part of, I didn't read that right. If you're going to say Brit Milah doesn't override the tzarat, then what would you say about Yimo Basar or Lato? That's only if there's no tzarat. That's the second option. But in the end, the drasha ends with Talmud Lomar, Basar. The extra word Basar comes to teach you, even if there is Beheret. Okay. This drasha works very well, Tinach, in all the places where the word Basar appears. There's three people who can do a Brit Milah. If we put them into categories, there's someone who's on their 8th day. There's someone who's a gadol who already became chayav in mitzvot. And the pasuk there says, "V'arel zachar shelo yimo basar lato." We read this before. He gets karet. When do you get karet? Only if you're already a gadol. So if you become 13 and you haven't done a Brit Milah, you'd have to do it. And if not, you get karet. But then there's this in between. There's someone over 8 days, but under Brit Milah. And there's no verse about him. So the Torah says like this: Tinach gadol d'chtivu basar. Katanami ktivu basar. We have the 8-day-old who it says b'yom hashmini yimol basar or lato. It says in that pasuk I just read, asher lo yimol basar or lato for gadol. So the basar appears in both those places, but beinoni minalan. But then we wouldn't have that this beinoni if you're in that in-between stage where you're not yachayev in mitzvot, but you haven't done your Brit Milah. Maybe if there's sarat there, it won't override because the word basar doesn't appear. So Amar, atemi beinya. No, you can learn it from the gadol and the katan. How so? Mi gadol lo atya, from the gadol by itself, you can't learn sheken anush karet, because he has its own unique halacha, he gets karet. The younger child doesn't. Mi katan lo atya sheken milah bizmana. And the younger child, the one on the 8th day, is unique because it's bizmana, it's right time. But hatzada shavesha behen, this is classic. If you want to learn from one, you can learn from each one, but the common denominator between them is what? Sheken yimolim, you're supposed to do a Brit Milah, and they're dochin et tzatzarat. Therefore, af kol shenimolim, therefore, anyone who's supposed to get a Brit Milah, it overrides Sarah. Rava Amar, okay, and that's how we get it. Now, the last part for today is Rava is now going to come and say, Milah bizmana docha lo tzricha kra. By the way, a Milah bizmana, you don't even need a pasuk. He's now going to say, this whole thing is only, you need the drasha from Sarat for a Milah shelo bizmana. But if you had Milah in its proper time, obviously it would be dochet Sarat. And you don't even need a pasuk. Why? You would learn it from a kavachomer. And again, we're getting back to our repeat kavachomer we keep going through. Uma Shabbat chamira. He's going with the version that Shabbat is more chamor than Sarat. Dochet, Sarat lo kol shekain. So, well, the more so, Sarat should be dochet. Right? So when it comes to bizmana only, we have the logic from Shabbat. Already, if it's not bizmana, then we don't have the logic from Shabbat. That's when we need this drasha. But obviously, Amar le Rav Safra le Rava, he's going to counter it and say, Mimai de Shabbat chamira, dilma tzarat chamira. Maybe tzarat is more stringent, and this is repeat, shekain dochet avodah, avodah dochet Shabbat. Because remember, tzarat overrides the avodah, and the avodah overrides Shabbat, and therefore tzarat is more chamor. So the Gemara answers, hatam lav mishum dechamira tzarat, ela mishum gavru de lo chazi. This is what we said before. Maybe it's not because tzarat's more chamor, Rava answers him. Maybe it's because the person just can't do it because he has a nega there, or even if he got rid of the nega. So they say, what do you mean he's not going to do it? Amaybi, kots baratovi avod. Theoretically, he could cut off his nega and go do the avoda. Well, the Gemara says, mechusar tefillah, that's not enough. I told you we get back to this. He still has to go to the mikvah. So they say, no, tinach nigaim temeim, nigaim tohorin mai. Well, there's two types of nigaim. There's what we call tzarat, and then there's someone who's a balmum. A kohen who's a balmum can't do avodah in the mikdash. Now, he doesn't need tefillah. He could just cut off his mum and then be able to go into the mikdash. So, ma'ika lamemar, what can you say to that? Therefore, they knock out this reason that it's not because gavur lo chase, And we'll end with this last answer, which is Amar El Amar Ravashi. Hecha amrina da'ate ase v'docha lo taseh kigom mila b'tzarat. Inami tzitzit v'kilayim. You can only say ase doche lo taseh in which scenario? When, this is very fascinating, I'll end with this fascinating idea. When the ina dimit'aker lav kamokim ase. As you're uprooting the lo taseh, you're overriding the negative commandment, you're actually fulfilling the positive. For example, kilayim, when you can't make a beged that's kilayim, that's got wool and linen together, but if you tie your tzitzit onto the beged, you're fulfilling the mitzvah at the same moment that you're over on Isur Kilayim. If let's say you tie what, each one is a different, right? Wool is the beged and the linen is the strings. Or the reverse. Or mila b'tzarat. As you're cutting it, you're fulfilling the mitzvah of Brit Milah. And you're also overriding the tzarat. But when it comes to avoda in the Beit HaMikdash, lav kamokim ase, but hacha, in the case of the avoda, what would happen? We're suggesting cut off the tzarat in order to sacrifice, right? You can then sacrifice the korban. But be'ina de lav lo kamokim ase. But there, when you uproot the negative, you don't fulfill the positive. You'll fulfill the positive after that. It's not that at the moment you cut it, you fulfill the mitzvah of doing avoda in the Beit HaMikdash. No, only after. Now, why would there be an obvious, right? It seems obvious why there's a difference. We can allow you to override a negative commandment if while you're overriding it, you're fulfilling the mitzvah aseh. But if we allow you to cut off your neged sarat, what if in the next minute something happens and you can't do the avoda? So now we've allowed you to override a negative commandment and you can't even fulfill the mitzvah aseh. So when they're detached and they're not happening all at the same time, in that case, we don't allow you to override the negative. And that's why you can't say that sarat is more chamor. There's a separate reason why we don't allow it to be overridden. But it doesn't have to do, it's not the same thing as our Brit Milah and Sarat. Okay, with that, we'll end for today. We're going to continue a little bit more with this tomorrow. Have a good day, everybody.